right, boys and girls. Well, welcome back to a somewhat long overdue podcast episode here on the You Don't Own the Lake podcast. It's been a while. I'm joined today with my good friend Grant Martin. You guys have maybe seen him on the YouTube channel in several crappie videos, wiper videos, maybe walleye videos. I don't know. I don't think we've done any walleye videos. Yeah, we did the bottom bouncing last year or the year before.
That's true. Yep.
But anyway, things have been crazy busy. Obviously, I mean, I feel like I say this all the time, being a full-time fishing guide, that things get kind of crazy this time of year, and they also get kind of crazy for all the guests that I have lined up on this podcast as well. So I decided to kind of take a little bit of a break from the podcast and focus more on the fishing content side of things. And if you guys have been keeping up with the YouTube channel, I've put out 3 fishing videos since the last podcast, which for me, again, this time of year is a lot of fishing content, but I got a lot of it done on Memorial Day weekend, last weekend. So I guess today I was going to actually do this podcast by myself last Friday because I was so stressed out about not actually having a podcast to put out. But again, none of the guests that I had lined up, our schedules just didn't match up because everyone is obviously in the fishing industry, and this is a busy time of year for everyone, especially those like myself with kids at home. They're out of school. Seeing as how this little podcast space is between the kitchen and the living room, doing podcasts with the kids home is not ideal. You know what I mean? It just doesn't work like that.
Very true.
Realistically, you know, anyway. So I guess seeing is that, you know, I don't have a particular, you know, out of town guest or Zoom guest or anything. That's why I wanted to have Grant on, because we just very recently fished together. When was it? Last Friday? Was it Thursday? No, Thursday.
Thursday night.
Yeah, Thursday night. And I thought that this would be a good opportunity on the podcast to kind of do like a April, May, June, you know, kind of walleye round table situation kind of talk as far as like what we've been doing, what we're currently doing, what the plans are here for the next month. So that's, we're going to talk about a lot of stuff today, but it is Monday afternoon. Grant and I both have some crispy beverages because it is both of our days off. This is my only day off this week. Wait, is this weekend Father's Day weekend? No, next weekend.
No, the 18th.
Yeah, so I'm on my regular schedule this week, but off today to get stuff done. So I thought it was good to have Grant on. So that's what we're going to talk about. We're going to talk a lot about walleyes, kind of recap those videos that you guys saw, the casting, jigging a plastic video, the bottom bouncer video. Definitely going to talk about the jigging plastics because that's what you and I did last Thursday. So get a little sip of the old drink here. Grant, you can talk. We don't have, you know, this isn't like a scripted thing. We're just shooting the shit here.
Well, let me give everybody a little background on myself and you know, kind of how I got into fishing. And
nobody cares.
Yeah, nobody cares. Probably right.
Just kidding, buddy.
But no, in all seriousness, I fished my whole life. Growing up, my mom's side of the family is from South Central North Dakota, Glacial Lakes up there, and I grew up every summer going fishing with my granddad. I mean, he'd tell me to be up at 4 a.m. and I'm up at 4 a.m. And I love spending that time with him in the boat, and you know, got pretty hooked on the pike and the walleye and the perch. And my dad really never was a big fisherman. He loved to be out, you know, enjoying the outdoors. But never really was kind of the fisherman type. So, you know, I really enjoyed those summer times with my granddad. And after he passed away, you know, it kind of was already in my blood, and I've been fishing ever since. And, you know, living here in Kansas, there's a lot of opportunity, and you know, the walleyes, everybody kind of raises their eyes when I tell them, yeah, you know, I'm going to catch walleye. Well, there's no walleye in Kansas. Well, you know, there really are. And, you know, besides the walleye fishery, you know, I kind of gravitate a little bit towards crappie and enjoy bass fishing too. So, you know, that's a little bit about me, and I've been fortunate to spend some time with Brian. We've developed a good friendship over the years, and was fortunate to be asked to officiate his wedding.
He did. This is Reverend Martin. He married Danny
Father
and I
G.
last year.
But felt fortunate and privileged to marry them, and here we are today.
That was really just because you're the only person I trusted not to get too shithoused before the actual ceremony. So, spoiler alert.
Smart.
No, I'm just kidding. Kind of, like 50% kidding. Well, thanks for the background, Grant. I think one thing, too, big shout out to one of my clients, Jeremy Horseman, for making me this badass metal sign back behind Grant here. So, Jeremy, I've been looking forward to doing the next podcast. I just got that up on the wall last week, and he just hit me up and said, "Hey, this is what I do, and I want to make something." So looks super awesome. I had to kind of rearrange some stuff. We're still in the process of rearranging things. Danny says that this wall area is too busy over here, but I don't care because we got another little picture to put up from Grant and I's walleye beatdown last Thursday. But anyway, thanks, Jeremy, if you're watching. But anyway, this is actually like the first podcast that I actually have a little notepad of things to go over because there is a lot of topics to talk about. And I mean, these are things that Grant and I do every late April, May, and June. Well, sometimes in March too for the saugers. We've had the early season sauger bite before the post-spawn walleyes really fire up. But we're going to cover a lot of topics and stuff today. So strap yourself in and enjoy the ride because, I don't know, it may go off the rails even though I have, this piece of paper here. It really doesn't mean shit. So we'll see what happens. But haven't really talked about too much in other podcasts because I've had a guest on, mainly focusing on them. And, that's why I didn't want to do a solo podcast the other day because you don't want to sound too narcissistic, when you're talking about yourself or things that you're doing or whatever. But this is all information that people can put into their own stuff. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm trying to.
Absolutely.
You can cut me off and interject at any time.
No, I think that, regardless of how much you think you know, you don't. You can always take pearls from other people. And, that's how we all learn at the end of the day. So,
yeah, true that. I like talking about it. That's why I'm a good fishing guide because I like to talk and teach, and that's what we're going to do. So we'll kind of start out with like mid to end of April. So I know you didn't really do a lot of the live scoping walleyes, in the deep water for the most part. But that's like you're getting our first kind of wave of post-spawn walleyes that end up out in the middle of the lake, suspended fish, which is really cool. Fishing suspended walleyes in the state of Kansas is really fun because that's something that we only kind of typically think about maybe in the Great Lakes type situation. Like what I'm going to do in August, catching big suspended walleyes, feeding on alewives and stuff. But, it's still kind of a post-spawn thing, late post-spawn. Either way, but that's kind of how I spend the majority of my mid to end of April. And you guys have seen the videos on the channel from this year. I made sure to do one or two, and I think there was even one from last year where we're fishing them vertical, no casting or anything, just a jig and a battle shad, and just twitching it once, getting in front of the fish, taking it away from them real slow, just reeling. And all those fish are, for the most part, in the river channel. We did catch a lot, kind of out in the main basin. Like off the structure, like when I told you, they're catching them in the same place as last year. We're out in space, but it's close to a piece of structure, and they just end up showing up there every day. Some are on the bottom, and some are suspended. But that's kind of that post-spawn bite. And then from there, we transition into May, so the water's starting to warm up, and that's when we start thinking more about, like the bottom bouncing and stuff, which I know
absolutely
you enjoy. You're a big troller.
Yep.
Big trolling guy.
Yeah, absolutely. No, the bouncers,
it's a necessity. It's not everybody's favorite thing.
Tried and true.
Yeah, that's the guarantee. That's what I always tell people. That's like when they're booking trips like a year in advance. I'm like, okay, if you want, the Livescope, vertical, whatever, casting big fish, early season, late season, and that's all dependent on Mother Nature. I mean, what our spring winds are like, just can be complete shit,
brutal.
Which I really like. But that May and June, it's like you want to catch a lot of fish, like walleyes in particular, and a lot of fish. It's bottom bouncing.
Yep. No, I agree.
They're either out on the flats or they're on structure, and they're moving around a lot. The water was 75-ish yesterday.
Yeah.
So things are moving up.
Yep.
Big
Absolutely.
time. Shallow,
Absolutely.
deep, doesn't matter. They're there, but for the most part, shallow.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, that's see, and this is why I hate having a script, because I keep looking down and I'm like, okay, I have to talk about this and I have to talk about this and do it.
Yeah.
Not make just like screw this thing.
We'll talk about that.
Helps.
We'll talk about a little bit of everything.
It helps to have that in front of us. But yeah, I mean, that brings us into where we are now. I feel like it was probably maybe the second week of May, maybe the third. It's like after my dad's birthday. Maybe, yeah, first or second week of May that we got off. The fish got out of the walleyes got out of the channel. Yep. And then they slid up onto the flats and different pieces of structure and stuff. And that's when we started the bottom bouncers.
Yep. And seeing the males first coming up from the depths. They're super, super hungry, and
a lot of them.
Not terribly hard to catch, but a lot of really nice eating fish. The nice thing to see too is that there's both of us were catching a lot of the wallettes, the fish that are under the limit. And, that just goes to show good lake management, and there's going to be some nice up-and-coming year classes down the road. So, quite honestly, I'm a big fan of keeping 15 to 17-inch walleyes. I think once you get, it
depends on the lake.
Depending on the lake, I mean, some lakes, they have to be over 18, but, the lake that we primarily fish, it's a 15-inch limit. 5 in combination, whether that be a walleye or a sauger
or saugai.
We
have saugais now too.
Yep.
And that is something too that I'll probably bring up at another point in time too, is being in touch with the fisheries biologist here locally, Jim Biazga. He's going to be on the podcast here pretty soon as well. He's a Monday to Friday schedule guy on the lake, so that's tough for me to do on my days off, but we're going to hook up. He lives right here in town. But yeah, we're seeing the 2019 year classes of saugais that they put in our particular reservoir. So there's a ton of the 14.5 to 16-inch year class of fish, which lakes are cyclical, up and down.
Absolutely.
In years past, it was like we were limiting out. Well, and I mean, granted, we have had some very quick limits this year. Yeah. But I'm just talking like size-wise, to where
Absolutely.
maybe 2 years ago, COVID year, 2020, 2019, 2020, and 2021, like a lot of 17 to 20-inch fish.
Mm-hmm.
And this year we're seeing the small. You can go out average for 4 or 5 hours of fishing, catch 30 or 40 walleyes, but you may only have 8 to 10 over 15, which in this state, in Kansas, there are only 2 reservoirs that have a 15-inch minimum length limit.
Yep.
I don't know about the state fishing lakes. I'm just talking about actual reservoirs. So it's good to see. But I like seeing the saugais, because I met up with Jim a couple times now to have him clip fins for him to send off to University of Wisconsin, Stevens Point, for them to get data from. I don't know. I'm not even going to try and explain what they're doing with it, because he's going to be on the podcast, talk about it. I don't think they're going to analyze how old the fish is or whatever. But yeah, that's kind of where we're at. It's just there's been a lot of chatter, we'll say, on the internet. I haven't really talked to you a lot about this too, and we're not even going to talk about it that much on this podcast, because I don't want to give that guy any attention. But a lot of chatter about all the small fish at Clinton.
Oh yeah,
or me having people long arm fish, and it's like, who gives a shit, man?
If
it's over 15 and people want to eat fish.
If it's over 15, I mean, hey, it is what it is, folks. I mean, they're gonna get eaten by somebody.
Yeah.
And like I was saying earlier, I mean, I had 15 to 17-inch walleye or butter.
Yeah, big time.
So,
we're very fortunate to have that minimum length limit, and it's been that way since the beginning. Thanks to Richard Sanders, rest his soul.
Yes.
And I don't see it. Jim said too. Doesn't see it changing anytime soon. So if we do get one over 22, they go back. So I caught that 24, 25, whatever yesterday.
Yeah.
And the guys that were fishing close by about shit their pants when
Yep.
they saw me let it go.
Well, I mean, you had a 22 the other night when we were out, and I mean that fish is still swimming. So
Yeah.
I think that's important.
But we were also pillaging the eaters that night too,
Oh, yeah,
which
yeah.
we will get to that as well. The casting
Fast and
jigs and
furious.
plastics too.
Fast and furious
But
evening. But
either way, I mean, I always have said too, and I mean, you've seen it. We see the bigger fish in early spring and late fall, like when we're live scoping them in the river channel.
Yeah.
When they're mixed in with the wipers. Well, I shouldn't say mixed in. They're below all the wipers and white bass. Yeah, I had a 25, and I always talk about it. Well, I took the picture behind me down to replace some stuff with that 9 1/4 pounder from December, a late fall feed bag fish. Like you wouldn't see you'd be really hard pressed to see a fish that big in the summertime.
Oh, absolutely.
When they're metabolizing
those,
everything so fast.
Those fish, I mean that, what was it? Probably a 2-week, maybe a 3-week stretch where you were catching them.
Oh, last November.
Yeah.
Yeah, Thanksgiving all the way up to
gosh.
almost Christmas.
I mean, just dandies. And
Good ones. And the eaters too. I mean, the 18 inchers.
Yeah.
Like just chunky.
Yeah. But as far as trophy fish, I mean, beautiful. Great time.
Yeah.
It was incredible.
I don't know. I have an affinity for those like 24 to 26 inchers. Because like we see it like when that 24, 25 or whatever came up yesterday before Jeff put it in the net. I mean, I was like, whew. Well, you know what it's like seeing fish that comes up for the first time. It looks 4 inches bigger in the water.
Absolutely.
But
absolutely.
that was, it's good to have those mixed in.
Well, you and I, yeah, we kind of have the running joke. There's no fish over 28 inches in the lake.
Oh,
and,
yeah, that guy at the
and-
fucking cleaning station yesterday, 2 days ago.
I mean, my opinion is, and I appreciate clients that are in your boat and your willingness that, if a fish is over this length limit, let's let it go. And, that way fish will get over 28 inches. You might get that 30-inch walleye out of a lake in Kansas instead of going, up to Milwaukee or up there.
Yeah. But it's just like Craig Johnson said, too, on his podcast. The average lifespan of a walleye in Kansas is like 8 to 10 years, and you got to figure that a fish at 28, 29 inches, which depends on the lake. I mean, yeah, you'll see some 30s. That's at the end of its life cycle. And
Absolutely.
It's like just exactly what Craig said. Do you want that fish to die in the lake, or do you want to catch it and keep it? And for me personally, like, I'm not cutting a fish that big. I would rather let it die in the lake and let the turtles eat it, or a great blue heron or a pelican, versus me. Or put it on the wall, I guess. But I don't know. It's just like the morals or the values that I was raised with, being from the North Country, and down here it's different. But,
you can get a replica made. I mean, you got replicas back here, and honestly, for me, I'd rather see, or know that there's a chance that some young child could catch that fish, and I mean, might be the biggest fish they'll ever catch again in their life of that species.
Walleye,
they're going to
especially,
be hooked in a heartbeat. I guarantee it. So
Yep. That just, I mean, whatever. It's if you're in your boat and you choose to keep a fish that big, that's your legal right to be able to do that. But for clients in my boat, anything over 22 goes back, and they appreciate that too, especially if we're catching eaters. It's like, and if they wanted to mount something, you take the length, you take the girth, and you take a shitload of pictures and send it to your favorite replica taxidermist, and boom, you've got one for life that's going to last way longer and look way better than a skin mount. Anyway, but yeah, so that's kind of where we're at now. Again, just like we'll again get more into the bottom bouncing, because now, unfortunately, just depending on the conditions, like the casting bite is not going to be there some days, like yesterday with the 0 wind and stuff.
not only that, but the wind direction too.
Yeah,
that
like
plays a big
east
factor.
northeast wind in the summertime.
Yeah,
Brutal.
yeah, and it was slick column yesterday, and
It was bad.
it was the same way this morning too. Little more wind now.
I saw a picture from somebody that I'm friends with that was on the lake this morning, and there was nobody there, and it was just absolutely slick calm. So, but yeah, I just keep looking.
Now we got the afternoon
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the afternoon
showers, and wind picks up a little bit, and usually the evening bites been pretty darn good.
Not even evening, but just like the afternoon. If the wind's blowing, like, well, if you guys are watching this on the YouTube channel, or even just listening to the podcast, the video from Memorial Day weekend that I posted on Sunday night that I filmed on Saturday with my wife and her friend, like 3 or 3:30 in the afternoon, boats blowing all over the place, and I was just railing walleyes on every other cast. That jig and plastic bite that you and I also did.
Yeah.
That was a fun,
Oh my gosh,
fun week. I didn't touch a night crawler for 6 days until yesterday. So that was a pretty good streak for this time of year.
Absolutely.
To not have to drag worms, because that's pretty much all everyone does here, whether it's dragging a jig and a night crawler, bottom bouncer, or whatever. But
well, and sometimes, I mean, you think about Memorial Day weekend. Sometimes I think, honestly, the boats help stir up the lake a little bit and to some degree get the fish going.
Yeah.
So, you've got to put up with a bunch of waves. Probably people getting too close, which has happened to the best of us.
well, that's a whole nother conversation for another podcast.
But you
and a
also
lot
have the
more
opportunity
bourbon.
to have a really good bite too. So, and you definitely experienced that. Looked like a good time.
It was a good time. Wait, what were you talking about? About the groceries just got delivered, and I looked at my watch and I lost my train of thought. What'd you say?
We were talking about Memorial Day weekend.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
And, now
we'll talk about that stretch a week too.
Now we're kind of getting into the June months.
Yeah, dog days. Well, on that, I know you keep looking down at the itinerary, trying to move us along, and I keep trying to digress. But that's what podcasts are for.
Yeah.
We digress, and then we get back on track. I was just looking at my pen, thinking about some asshole on Facebook from a hole. I don't even want to get into it either. But they said, because I know that they watch the podcast, they said something about me and my weed vape pen and jailhouse tattoos.
Huh.
I was like, that's pretty funny. Never been to jail, and the tattoos on my body cost probably more than the guy's boat itself over the last 20
Good thing
years.
that people don't judge.
I wish I had a weed vape pen. Oh, internet. I love the internet.
Yeah, that's why I stay away from it.
God bless the internet.
That's why I stay away.
Said you can keep your weed pen and your jailhouse tattoos. Anyway. So yeah, let's first talk about the casting bite, because I actually just had this done today, boys and girls. Let me just bring the video back up and make sure that it's in the frame. Probably saw this if you guys follow the socials. If you don't follow the socials, go follow the Facebook and Instagram page. That was from last Thursday. Grant and I just had ourselves a day. So this day started out, let's see. So I think maybe the day before that, had clients on that bite. Like, we started the morning out bottom bouncing, and then we caught like 7 keepers, and it was good. And I was like, well, let's, if it's this good, let's go do the casting bite.
Yeah.
And then we went over to the spot that you and I had fished, and had them on there was like another boat over there, but they were just setting up drifts over the spot. And then we pull up, and like within 2 casts get a keeper, then within another 2 casts get another keeper, and then that boat that was drifting decided to stop drifting, and then just trolling motor up right to where we were casting. I'm talking 25 feet from the boat, and then just sit there because they were just vertical jigging worms. And then we'd caught our 10th keeper, and then I told those clients, I was like, you know what, let's just get out of here. Nope, I'm not dealing with this. But
No.
So that is one thing, that if you guys fish lakes with shallow structure, and this applies to the bottom bouncing 101 video that I did too earlier this week, especially when you're looking on your map and finding long, shallow points that come out from shore. You may be 300 yards offshore on a big point that comes up to like, 4 to 8 feet, maybe 4 or 6 feet is what I like. But if you can side scan that point and it's got rocks on it, which I guess that was the one thing I forgot to interject in this, was like a graphic of that perspective view or perspective mode, the Livescope perspective that I showed you, that rock pile that we were fishing. Just pitching a small jig in a plastic. Like, you can do it with a night crawler, but I mean, when walleyes are around, so are drum and little catfish, and they're just those little peckerheads are just gonna peck away at your crawler. But 1/8 ounce jig, even sometimes a 1/16 ounce jig, just to give it more hang time, keep it out of the rocks. But we use the quarters, keep it a little bit more aggressive. But those small spots, you know, like versus spots that you would normally troll with a bottom bouncer that you can set up on cast to. I mean, how much freaking fun was that? Because I'll set the day up first. I'm going to stop talking and I'll let Grant talk here, but I want to set the day up first. So it was last Thursday. I had a 6-hour guide trip planned that morning. Show up to the ramp, 6 o'clock rolls around, 6:05. I call my client. He unfortunately mixed up his day. He thought it was supposed to be the day after, even though we'd already confirmed that it was that Thursday morning. So he wasn't going to be able to make it, and I just knew that since I was already there and awake, I wasn't going to go home and just go back to sleep, that I was going to run out and fish, and ran right to that shallow point with rocks on it and just started pounding on the walleyes on a 1/4-ounce jig. And, I mean, I wish I could say it was a swing 'em in baits hammertail, but it's that Beef Fish and Tackle Authentics Plastics, the Pulsar. I didn't keep any fish that morning. I probably caught, what did I say? I had 26 walleyes in 3 hours, and 16 would have kept.
Yep.
So that was that morning. And then that was like, get off the water, call you, tell you a story.
Yep.
It's like, hey, maybe we should,
maybe we should
go
break
out
away later today.
We should do the afternoon.
Fishing. I can probably get my calls made and find some time to go fishing. And we did.
And that bite, I mean, I can't really say, I don't know, that bite for me in the morning did die because we had a little bit of a breeze and then it slicked off. It was calm. And I mean, it was a Thursday and the boat traffic was just fucking outrageous. But went back out at, what time did we start fishing? 4:30?
Probably 4:30.
4:30. No, maybe it was 5.
Yeah. Well, we met at 4:30 and we got on the water. And
nobody
at
there.
the spot by 5. Not a soul. And
I told you too when we were leaving the marina, I was like, we were going to sit on this spot all night. I don't care about anything. We're going to sit on the spot. And that's what we did. And we'll just say this. That evening I did keep fish, had my 5 keepers in just around 25 minutes. But this leads us to our next topic of conversation as far as the jig and plastics go. And that is cadence.
Yes.
Because it did, tell us about your experience on that. That faithful evening.
So yeah, and that's I said earlier about we can all take pearls away from people that we fish with.
Drum pearls
as well. Yeah, yeah. I let that one go that evening, but we did get some good laughs out of it. Yeah, I mean, you absolutely. I think it was maybe your second cast. Fish on, and then maybe the third or fourth cast, fish on. And I mean, too. You were literally, you put on a clinic for those 25 minutes. And that's one thing that, that I took from that night of us being out is really thinking about cadence, thinking about fall, really getting my timing down. And once I was able to do that, I was putting fish in the boat, and then with both of us doing that, conservatively,
we were crushing. We should have.
There were a lot of fish. I mean, it was lights out, and to the point of I could vertical jig a plastic and still catch fish. Yeah. I mean, that's how good the bite was.
It was it was special. For
sure. But back to the cadence thing. I mean, that's something that I think a lot of people need to take to heart and really learn how to, kind of, I don't want to say perfect their fishing, but there is, it kind of takes it to the next level when you really dial that in, and it's amazing. And it showed that night. The fish pay attention to it. And if you can get that down, you're definitely going to put more fish in the boat.
Yeah. And that, I guess, for people that are listening too, when we talk about cadence, and I was just bringing up like the dictionary definition. There's several, especially as it pertains to like running, people that run and music and stuff, but it is a regular and repeated pattern of activity. So when we talk about cadence with a jig and plastic, it's getting that cast out there and then getting it to bottom, and we're just doing a slow pull up and letting that bait fall down to bottom, and at the same time picking up your slack. And as soon as that bait hits bottom, you pull it back up, and you just get that rhythm in your head of doing, as that bait's falling, counting 1,000, that bait's going to hit bottom, you pull it right back up. It's not let it sink and then it's on the bottom for 3 seconds and then you pull it up and then do that again, and then next time it's 2 seconds, and then you like really rip it, or a snap. It's like the same every time. And walleyes are really smart. So again, they pick up on that. Cadence is also applicable a lot to jerkbait fishing, twitch, twitch, pause, twitch, 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 pause, twitch, twitch, pause, whatever. So when you're really proficient at a jig and a plastic bite, it's probably because your cadence is dialed in. I mean, I feel like when the fish are stupid, yeah, you can go out and just drag a plastic or pop it or hop it or pull it or whatever, and they're going to bite. But like when you're dialed, you saw I was. And I told you, I'm like, don't get discouraged because I'm pillaging you right now. Just think about what your bait is doing and how you're working it, because I see that a lot with clients too, where like I see them catch one or whatever, and then they go 30 minutes without catching another one, and I see them get lazy because they're in their head about it. And they're like, I'm not going to get this. And then they start getting lazy with, the pull, or it's not hitting bottom or whatever. And I'm like, hey, just slow down and stop and keep your head in the game, because that is how you become proficient with a jig stick, is just how methodical you're being with it.
Well, and you use it when you're fishing for wiper. It's applicable across all species. I mean, you talked about jerk baits. You think about like a Zara spook, walking the dog, just thing. all those things that once you perfect it, your fish catch rate goes way up.
Well, and I mean, even if it doesn't, your chances at your catch rate go up. Like if the fish are off, they're off. Like yesterday, we tried that casting bite on that same spot for
you said it was
an hour and 15 minutes or something, and I was like, if we haven't caught a keeper by now, I'm not going to sit here and wait another hour for the fish to turn on, which like there was no wind. So then we started pulling bottom bouncers after that and covering water because there was no wind. So it didn't have the fish set up on any one piece of structure, and they weren't going, just not happening.
Yep.
So, but with that comes the tackle too. This is a really good time for me to plug the new Fox River FRX series of rods that just came out a couple months ago. Because this is my first time that I've really been. I mean, I prototyped that 7.6 medium last year that we don't even have right now in the lineup. That's for 2024. But that 610 medium light and the 7.6 medium light, I mean, with the tungsten jig,
they're beautiful.
I mean, you can feel a fish fart on your lure from 3 feet away.
You let me throw one of those the other night when we were out, and oh my gosh,
that was your first time fishing it too.
That was my first time.
It is very, I mean, I'm not saying you have to go out and spend $250
and I loved it
on a Fox River rod, but if you do, you can use the discount code KAE10. But yeah, I mean, 10-pound braid, 10 or 12-pound fluorocarbon leader. We were using the Northland tungsten jig, which you don't have to use tungsten, especially when you're around big boulders like we were, submerged like foundation boulders. I mean, I've lost several. My Shields package will be here at some point during this podcast of
nice.
The re-up of tungsten jigs that are basically $5 a freaking piece.
Yeah.
But the tungsten just helps you feel everything. The braid, when you're stroking that bait up off the bottom and it's falling and those walleyes are aggressive and they hit it on the fall and you feel that thunk, versus the other part of the bite, which was the majority of the bites that we had, where, you lift that bait up and let it hit bottom. And when you lift that rod up again, you just feel mush because that fish has ate it pretty much off the bottom or pinned it to the bottom. But having the right rod for pitching jigs is key.
Well, and those Northlands,
they're slim.
They're slim, but they've got that longer shank.
Well, of course,
hook,
premium hook.
which I think is an important thing to mention, because we did have a fair amount of short strikes the other night, and to the point where we even lost the tail off the bait. And those longer shank hooks give you just that little bit of edge to catch some of those short strikers. So that might be something to.
Yeah, well, I even said that night too, because that was
on,
that was the last day or two of our gin clear water.
Yep.
Because I mean, what was the final total for rain in that one day, like 4.5 inches?
Well, Lawrence had a lot more than I'm out in Eudora. I mean, we had just at 3 inches, but I think I saw Lawrence the paper the next day. It was like 4 inches.
Yeah.
So
and then the lake was coming up.
Yeah.
The inflow was crazy, but the water clarity didn't change, and then it did change. But I should have. Remember, I said that night, I was like, I wish I would have I wish I would just pull out a hair jig for
Right.
those short strikers.
Yeah,
the
absolutely.
on the fly jigs that we used last year in that wiper video, like you guys had seen in my Green Bay videos. But those hair jigs, when those fish shut off or get weird, especially with that trailer hook, that would have been money. But again, fishing around big rocks can be pretty tough with the hair, depending on how you're fishing it. But anyway, that kind of covers the tackle for the casting bite that we were on. That was really fun. And I mean, that bite's going to stay like that all summer. We could go and do that again because Danny and I, remember we filmed that video like the day after the 4th of July 2 years ago, and I was catching big ones on the pile. Like we were sitting over there waiting for the fireworks to start because we were going to watch them over the dam. I just picked up a hammertail. That was my first like casting the hammertail up shallow video where we caught some really nice ones.
Yeah, and I mean, it's funny too because so I'm 48, and I've fished a lot of these reservoirs here my whole life, and you could almost draw a line in the sand as to when that walleye bite starts to taper off. You get into those real dog days of summer.
Yeah,
and usually it's right after the 4th of July. And
it just gets balls hot, and it just gets like there's no freaking wind.
No,
like last year,
and the lake's like 90.
And that's why I take the whole month of July off. Like I've got my honeymoon this year with Danny. Well, 4th of July, then honeymoon, and then the rest of the month off. I have like one random guide trip at the end of the month, but then August still take like a week off. But that August, I mean, that's why I was guiding at a whole different lake last year because we never had any wind. And the freaking midge fly hatches were so bad, and they're already bad this year. It's like, it's just brutal.
Like $50 at the car wash yesterday.
But this that's only like applicable to the mid-south because up north, it doesn't suck because they're so far behind weather-wise. Like, you know what I mean? Like they can catch walleyes all summer because that water's not 86 degrees.
Right. Yeah.
And the mayfly hatch can always make it tough up there like it can here, but everything up there is so far behind. So I don't want people listening, especially up in the North Country, to think like, oh yeah, July and August suck. Like that's why my dad and I are going to Green Bay in August because it's called August for a reason when we're catching giants. There can be dog days times up there, but even on the Great Lakes, like you're going to have some wind down here. I mean, I would just prefer to rather reschedule a trip if the wind's going to if the wind's going to like be blowing 1 to 3/4 mile an hour all morning.
Yeah. I mean, it's that for me, that's usually the time to, I mean, the kids, I've got a couple of kids that are in high school and for us, we start to kind of transition to that time to just be out on the weekends and coving it, with friends and doing a little jet skiing.
Yeah. Well, we'll do that.
Occasional cerveza. So yeah, it's kind of nice to have that outlet too.
I feel like I chose the wrong picture for this. I don't know. See how that walleye is kind of...
Yeah, but that was the feisty one.
It's still an epic.
That was the feisty one. I'm pretty sure that walleye...
saw guy.
The saw guy. I'm pretty sure he got bled right there in that picture because...
your fingers
he
ripped
pretty
his
much
rakes
ripped
out.
his gills out right there as he was flopping.
Also, big shout out to Slim.
Yes.
Slim Pickens
Slim
for coming
Pickens.
over and taking this picture. He's like, man, I wish I would have known you had a YouTube channel. I just found you. You're famous. So Slim, if you're watching, shout out for taking this picture. And big shout out for your like 30-inch drum that night.
Yes, the drum. That thing was monster. But thanks for boat jumping over and taking this picture. It turned out great.
Yeah, that was good. That was fun.
Yes.
So anyway,
awesome.
That's kind of been the last 3-4 weeks here. I mean, obviously we're not done with this podcast yet, but just that was kind of like the recap. But it is fun to be on those casting bites, especially a bit. For me, like as a guide, it just depends on who's in the boat. Like kids, probably not going to maybe try and get them on that cast. I'm talking, 12 and under.
Youngsters, yeah.
That if they, it's probably going to be difficult. So I'm going to break out all 4 bottom bouncer rods and start dragging those around. The rod bends over and they just reel them in. Type situation.
Yeah, a little more immediate gratification.
Some days are different though. Some days like that morning bite just isn't there. And, you can fish one spot casting in the morning, not get anything. You can come back 2 or 3 hours later and those fish are going. Mm-hmm. But unfortunately for the lakes that we fish, those spots are so small that there's a chance that there's probably going to be 3 or 4 boats on it and you're SOL.
Yeah.
Which, on the spot that we were fishing is big enough to fish one boat. Do you think everybody else knows that and cares? No.
No, not a bit.
They'll come. So that goes without saying.
Flies on shit.
Yeah. They see the net fly. So, but let's talk a little bit about like the bottom bouncing stuff. I mean, you guys that are watching this or maybe listening on the podcast saw the bottom bouncing 101 video that I did on Memorial Day. That was at a totally different lake than I normally fish. And I mean, I know where the walleyes live there. I just don't drive the hour south to get there. But I mean, within 3 minutes of rods being in, had fish on.
Yep.
And it just never stopped. And Danny was like pissed. Well, not pissed. She had been out with me all day. It was so hot. We started at a small lake, Carbondale.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
That's where we went first because I was like, well, I'm going to catch a big saw guy.
Yeah.
Because I have a couple buddies that fish there. And it just
Nice.
like, it was so hot. There was no wind. And we got there at like 1 o'clock and it just wasn't happening. So needless to say, she was pissed because she had been with me all day and she was just crisping over it. But I just couldn't stop catching walleyes at the second lake that we went to. But back to my original point, as far as tackle goes, rods, I mean, I love the just 7-foot medium moderate action rods. Like those Shields rods that I used for a year that I got last year were super good. And then we at Fox River developed that 7-foot medium. It's a fast tip. It's not moderate, so it's a little bit stiffer.
Right.
But not super stiff. It's just like a mild crankbait rod.
Yep. I mean, that's what I'm running is the Fox River, and I love it. It's just,
Well, but you're using the trolling rods, though.
right, the trolling rods, with
like
my bouncers.
With the longer butts and stuff. And line counters, but not with the flip and switch.
Line counters, absolutely.
But you always want, something with more of a moderate action so they can bend that rod and not feel it right away and just let them sit on it for a while with it bent before you pick it up. And I mean, maybe even in this podcast too, I'll link that video that you and I did back when I was still using the Fox River trolling rods with the big counters and stuff.
Yeah. That would be good.
That old guy we were trying to run the road and that old guy was just like right there.
Right on us.
And I hope, this guy showed up in my...
That never happens, right?
This guy showed up in my mean comments reading with Josh. What's his name on YouTube? I think I remember. Lip Ripper. He commented on that video of you and me that day and was like, what a tool or what a clown or what a tool, another clown that thinks he owns the lake. Just like the classic. That's why this podcast is called
Perfect.
You Don't Own the Lake.
It's exactly what
because I'm paying homage
say.
to all you idiots that say that. You don't own the lake. But yeah, that's like the rods. If you guys haven't seen that video, I'll link that one somewhere up here as you guys are watching too. Go pick one up. But the reel to having a counter for me as a guide is nice because I can tell clients in the front of the boat, hey, let those out till it says 21 feet or 22 feet. Whereas like with me and you, we could just use a regular one without a counter because we know when it's on bottom and you don't want those lines way back like crankbaits, just right below the boat. Line it at 45.
45, yep.
Keep your speed, which right now, I mean, we were catching most of our fish. We caught 2 yesterday. I was going like 1.7. I wasn't even paying attention because like we were just doing shit in the boat. Yeah. And I'm like, oh my God, we're hauling ass. And all of a sudden I look over and a rod's been over. So as that water warms up, you can really crank that speed up. I was going to say,
I mean, we were up to damn near 2 the other day. And
as long as you have bottom contact with the bouncer.
0.9 to 2. I mean, depending on, how far you are into the summer.
But if you're picking up like my buddy Dave McKee, which speaking of which, hey, grab one of those shirts right there. I don't think I sent you a picture of this.
No, you told me about
Big shout out to my buddy Dave McKee. Oh, I always tell him, Dave will never book a trip with me, but he'll always make sure he fishes right on top of me. And it's okay because he's a really nice, just old nice guy. But I always say, Dave, if you're going to fish that close to me, you got to bring me a bottle of Tito's. Twice now he's done it. And
That's awesome.
That was Thursday morning.
Sweet.
The morning that you and I fished in the afternoon.
Awesome.
And I was on that casting bite. He came over and he was pulling spinners.
Okay.
But he was like, hey, I got that stuff for you. So he gave me a bag and I was like, oh, I know what this is. And he's like, open up what else is in there.
Solid. Beautiful.
Thanks, Dave. I appreciate the sentiment. Made me a couple homemade shirts. You don't own the lake. But anyway, Dave himself was posting pictures this morning of when he was pulling spinners. He posted his first picture he caught like a 4-foot long stick. And then the second picture he posted, he caught
A 6 foot
like a rag
Oh,
or
yeah.
something.
Wow.
And then last week, that same day I saw him, he posted a picture. He caught a pair of sunglasses. And I told him, I'm like, you have to speed up, Dave. If you're picking up shit on the bottom,
Yeah.
you're going way too
Slow.
slow.
Yeah.
Especially if you're using the aluminum or metal, like hammered Colorado style blades.
Mm-hmm.
They're heavy and they're just going to sink right to bottom. Whereas we use the Smile blades, the plastic ones, they have a less of a tendency to sink down.
Yeah. We step in the column.
You got to speed up.
Yep.
I tell my dad too, I'm like, if you're catching drum, you got to speed up. And
Absolutely.
you learn that early on. But yeah, keep it right in that like 0.9, depending on the water temperature early in the season, slower when the water's cold.
Yeah, 0.9 to 1.2 early seems to kind of be the ticket.
Especially if you get shallow, kick that shit up to 1.5 miles, 1.7. Just do what the fish want you to do. You know?
They'll let you know.
Yeah. But we run 15-pound braid on the bottom bouncers. Have to run braid. Some guys like mono because they like the stretch, but I like to be able to feel everything on the bottom. I want to know if I'm on like a rock substrate or mud to rock substrate transition situation.
Yeah. The only time I run monos is if I'm using
crankbaits,
trolling cranks.
Right.
10-pound mono.
Yeah. Well, for me, I run 12 because 12 follows the precision trolling data depth curve for everything.
Yeah.
Which is 12-pound big game, which 12-pound big game might have the line diameter of 10-pound mono.
Yeah, because like my flicker shad chart, it is 10-pound mono that follows.
Yeah.
So
big game is different though. You know what I mean?
Yeah, diameter.
It's a little thicker.
Yeah,
I don't remember.
And I'm using trilene.
Yeah.
So, but I don't know. I mean, that might be the one other thing to chat about is just pulling cranks. It seems like as we kind of get further along here now, that crankbait bite's going to start to pick up, and the fish are a little more scattered sometimes, you know, depending on the time of day.
Big time scattered.
Yeah, and that's a really nice way to get fish. And if you've got kids in the boat, it's pretty fun too. I mean, it's a nice way for them to catch
whites, wipers.
Absolutely.
I mean, whatever. Like,
but at least you're catching fish, and the kids enjoy that, and it's good.
And you don't have to fuck with night crawlers either.
Yeah. Oh man.
I mean, bottom bouncers are good, but like for me as a guide, sometimes it gets old dealing with night crawlers all the time. That's why I was so excited about the casting stretch that I was on. I hadn't touched a crawler in literally 6 days until.
Well, and you know how dirty my boat is. Like I love having crawlers in my boat. Dirt everywhere. It just is awesome.
But if we were smart and planned ahead, which you do better than I do because you're less busy fishing wise than I am, we would take them out of the dirt or the bedding, or take them out of the dirt, put them in a special bedding, or take them out of the dirt and put them in an ice bath in a Tupperware container.
Right. Yeah. Tupperware.
Which when the Lund is ready, you can bet your ass. But by the time the Lund is ready, I won't be fishing worms anymore, probably.
But, speaking of which, ETA?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, we can go. I was texting both of them because I got to get in touch with Hoover because I have to register. The thing. But Kayla at Mid Kansas Marine,
you gotta register it.
She said, "Yeah, I mean the Aqua Traction is being drafted, and this is their busiest time of year.
Yeah,
so
of course it is.
I don't know. I'm almost in half a mind to say, hey, I'm going to bring the Crestliner out there and rig up the electronics, and I'll fish the boat until the Aqua Traction's ready, and then I'll bring it out there, and we can just knock it out in like a day or two. Because I feel like, I don't know, it's June 5th.
Yeah.
And I take all July off. I feel like at this point, I'm going to fish the Crestliner for the rest of June, and then just... And then I go on. I won't even probably fish the Lund until like after I get back from the honeymoon. I don't know.
If it was me, I'd just wait. I mean, what's the rush, right?
Because if I had $5 for every person that asked me when the Lund was going to be ready, I could buy you a new Lund. That's how brutal. And this is no shade to Mid Kansas Marine at all, because the boat is there and it's ready, but the Aqua Traction takes a while to get the material, and because I had a shitload of material, I mean the floor, the front deck, and the gunnels, and then the electronic swap for my Crestliner. It'll be when it's going to be, but now I'm starting to get antsy. That's why I hit up Garrett and Kayla this morning. Garrett for numbers, so I could go get it, because I can't register the boat without the bill of sale or a receipt from the dealer.
Yep.
and I already have everything pending in the KDWP system right now because I want that boat to have numbers when I pick it up so I can go drive it. I don't want to end up getting fucked like I did last year with the Crestliner.
Oh, yeah,
I remember. The boat in.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I get stopped at the ramp by Zach Porterfield, who does not work at Clinton anymore, thankfully. Not thankfully. No shade to Zach, but I took my dad out that morning and was going to be like on my way to the office when it opened at 8:00 to register the boat.
Yeah. No, I remember you called me. You're like, dude.
Classic.
Just got a ticket.
Classic. So anyway, that's the status on the Lund. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. Rest of the summer, cranks. I mean, somebody was talking about like an August, early September trip earlier today. And they were like, are the walleyes still going to be biting? And I'm like, I mean, yeah, but it'll be slow. And when I book trips in August and September, early September, I'm like, whatever bends the rod.
Right. Yeah. It's a free for all. That time of year. Yeah.
Because it can be tough. But we always, I mean, you can catch them. We start catching summer's not just like a crankbait only, or crankbait only is not just for summer. It's like, you know, I have buddies that start fishing cranks for saugers in March, and just like I did 2 years ago.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
So, I mean, it's like a whole thing, but the fish get more scattered in the summertime. They're not like positioned all the time on structure. So they get on the mud flats and just, I mean, I'm sure Jim Miazga, the fisheries biologist, and I were talking about this. We're like, well, where do all these 25 to 28 inch walleyes go in the summer? They probably suspend just like the fish up north do, and they're just harder to target.
Absolutely. I totally agree with
versus
that.
Like the smaller fish that are just on the bottom out shallow in the mud flats or whatever.
Yeah. So they're not that big for no reason, right? So
so pulling lead core, you know, could catch them.
Absolutely.
I love my lead core spreads that I run. When it's fun, it's fun.
Yep.
I like those new Fox River 10.5 footers. Do the 10.5 footers with mono straight out the side, and then the new 5'2" shorty Fox River rods straight out the back on lead core, and you've got a whole spread that's never going to tangle, and no planer boards necessary. So that's
hey,
fun
actually,
too.
That reminds me of something. Since we're kind of free for all in it here for a minute, we were talking. It was probably 2 weeks ago. Back to the bottom bouncers. And let's say, so for instance, here in Kansas, you can get a 3-pole permit. Each person can fish 2 rods legally, but you can also get a 3-pole permit so you could fish 3. But let's say, like when you and Danny were out, and you're running a 4-rod setup.
I only ran 2 that day.
Well, but let's say you were running 4 rods.
Yeah.
Okay. So talk a little bit about the ounces that you'd run up front versus in back.
Well, that's
and
like
the order of letting that stuff out. Because that's something I think people need to think about.
All that stuff is in that Bottom Bouncer 101 video, which, you know, again, I'll link that somewhere if you guys are watching on YouTube. And if you're listening to this and not on YouTube, go to the YouTube channel, subscribe. Obviously, go to that video because all the links for all that stuff are in there. But when we run a 4-rod spread, the key to running 4 bottom bouncers from the front to the back is keeping the weights in the front of the boat on your bottom bouncers heavier than in the back. So we run 2-ounce bottom bouncers in the front and 1.5 in the back, and that 2 ounces in the front helps keep those baits more vertical under the boat so that they don't drift back into the back rods. Like in the back of the boat, you can afford to have a little bit too much line out depending on the depth. But if you have too much line out in the front, doesn't matter how much weight you're running, they're going to get tangled up, especially if you run into like a wiper or something. It's just going to be a complete gong show on that side of the boat.
Yeah.
So having those consistent, but if you're just getting started out bottom bouncing, don't get crazy and think you have to run 4 rods. Feel like I'm very dialed on the bottom bouncer front to where when I have clients in the boat, 2 clients, 2 rods in the front, 2 in the back, everyone has something to watch. Teamwork makes the dream work. You know, if somebody's in the front of the boat and they fish, I'm like, here's a box of night crawlers, because if you get bit off or catch a fish, take your fish off, put another night crawler on. I'm trying to keep the boat speed, trying to follow whatever contour I'm on, doing this, that, and the other. I can't be all, but if I have kids in the boat, obviously, you know, it's fine.
No,
but if somebody is
going on,
able, you know, running 4 rods, teamwork definitely makes the dream work.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's if you guys want to get crazy and run 4 rods, it doesn't matter. But just like I said in that Bottom Bouncer 101 video,
Mm-hmm.
1 ounce per 10 feet of water that you're fishing. So I always err on the side of going a little bit heavier. So 1.5 ounces is pretty standard no matter what depth of fishing. I don't know. I would say like 15 shallower, but anything over that, you got to go heavier. The fish don't care what size the bottom bouncer is, as long as your line is at a 45-degree angle when you're at speed. Because if you have more than a 45, you got too much line out.
Yep.
Or you're too light.
Yep.
The weight's too light.
Yeah, the weight's too light. No, that's good info, man.
Yeah.
Thanks for going over that again. I know that you did have that in your video, but I think it's, it's okay to.
Well, there's summer fishing. There's a lot to cover. The casting, trolling cranks, bottom bouncers. I mean, I wish that, yesterday, like when I had my client buddy, my Jeff Miller out, I told him, because he was looking at the slip bobber rods in there with the Phil wobble bobbers. I'm like, God, I should have had those. Because that would be deadly.
We should have had those Thursday night.
Yeah, big time. That would have been deadly. But
crazy.
we were catching them so good, it might have just been a shit show. Like we're casting and have a bobber out, and it's like, you have to drop one rod to grab the other and get it. But slip bobbers up shallow in the summer, just letting that bait hang forever and letting that fish stare at it versus trying to drag a jig in a night crawler or whatever. But having I think everything I have in my slip bobber box is like a 16th ounce Fireball, the Northland Fireball jig.
Yep.
Letting that hang right up off the bottom under a slip bobber over shallow structure. Deadly. I know guys that do it at Hillsdale.
No, I believe it.
It's like,
I believe it.
Giants. Rob Masterson, Ron Earhard, Tony Gallant. He fishes slip floats a lot. And guys up north do it with leeches. But yeah, super deadly. But now on those freaking rock piles, the bluegills are spawning. So you got to worry about those 7 to 9 inch. Although that's not a bad time. You set the hook into an 8-inch bluegill, you're like, oh yeah, it's a 15-inch walleye, because they fight so fucking hard.
I was gonna say, there's some. I'm not gonna pass up a nice gill, man. They're a little buttery fish too.
Yeah,
They're not bad eaters. So,
we're right at the hour mark here. So, ish. I don't remember. We were kind of dicking around at the beginning there, but good talk. Just kind of like bring everything back together. I mean, like I said at the beginning, I just wanted to kind of go over like my personal as a fishing guide and everything that we've been doing and how crazy things have been. That April to May to June transition of like the cool water to from the post-spawn fish, fresh post-spawn fish to the water's starting to get warm, their metabolism's getting high, the bait's moving around, we've got bug hatches, the wind's going every other direction, especially in the spring.
Every other day.
Yeah, literally. And just how we transition from, because I'm not pulling spinners year round, there might be some guides that are like, well, I know of one specifically in the States, like, well, let's put 2 number 7 flicker shads 100 feet out back behind the boat, fire up the big motor, and just drive around. And we'll catch everything, Yeah. Which, like, as from a client perspective, I'm like, God, I can't think of anything I'd rather not do on every trip for, 4 to 8 hours than pull 2 number 7 flicker shads around the lake around every point. But having that trolling bite, the bottom bouncer bite, which it's kind of trolling. It's so slow. You can hold the rod or put them in the holders, but it's so interactive for everyone. You always are watching for something like, a fish hits a crankbait, that rod bends over. Even if you don't look at it for 30 seconds, he's still going to be hooked. Bottom bouncer, different story. Those big ones, they'll come up and they'll grab the whole thing and they'll just sit on it. And if you don't see that rod in time when it's folded, he's just going to...
Yep, spitter.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think, and I'm sure you'd probably agree. For me, it's casting first. If you can get on a good casting bite, that is the cat's meow. And then...
Especially on a small spot.
Yeah, and then bouncing, and then probably trolling third, just because, in my mind, trolling is probably more of a social kind of fishing, maybe a little bit.
Yeah, but it has to be there. It has to be like those fish aren't set up on any one spot. They're scattered, so therefore we are trolling.
And there's a reason that we're doing it when we're doing it, for sure.
Versus I'm not lazy, or versus I am being lazy and all I want to do is troll.
Right.
Because it's easy and we're probably going to catch fish.
Yeah, no, I totally agree.
Different clientele for me.
Yep.
Just depends on the clients. But anyway, So I had upcoming things on here. We've already talked about it. I'm just waiting on the Lund to be done. It's there. It's ready, with the exception of the aqua traction and getting my electronics switched over. So I'll be excited to show you guys that on an upcoming video. I pretty much covered the videos that I wanted to do for this month as far as bottom bouncing and casting. I may do another casting video, but I just don't want it to be on the same spot in the same place. So if the time allows, we'll try it. Father's Day is coming up. I'm going to take my dad to a different lake for a wiper bite. You know the lake. Yep. You know the bite.
Sweet.
You guys saw it. I did a video 2 videos ago with those giant cranks. I'll take my dad. We might do that again. And then
be awesome.
After that, then it's July, and I'm off for almost an entire month to go to Cancun on the honeymoon, the 4th of July first, and then just take some time to breathe, sleep in, hang out with everyone.
Yeah.
So I don't think it's a full 4 weeks. Last week I took a full 4 weeks off, and I drove Danny fucking crazy. But this year I think it's just like 3 or 3.5 or something like that. So those are the things that are coming up, but that'll allow me a lot more time to schedule all of the guests that we have. Because again, this is a very busy time of year for everybody. Doesn't matter who you are. I mean, we've got walleye guys, constant tournaments. The fisheries biologist, was that Thunder?
That was Thunder.
Nice.
Yeah.
It's coming.
Afternoon showers.
We got rain. Well, I got to get those groceries off the front porch, but yeah. So again, that'll allow me more time for the podcast and stuff, but I did just need a little break from that. Because I wanted to get, while the bites were so good, I wanted to get those videos out fresh. So we had the wiper bite, big cranks. We had the casting bite for walleyes that we talked about, and the bottom bouncing 101. So if you guys haven't seen those videos, please go check them out. I will put them in the description on the YouTube video. And if you guys are listening on Apple Music or Spotify or Amazon, go to the YouTube channel and check those videos out. So in the meantime, thanks for joining.
Yeah, thanks
Talking
for having
shit
me.
for a while.
Awesome.
Because this would have been tough to do by myself, because I almost did on Friday morning. Remember when I called you and I was like, do you have time this morning? Just come over for an hour and do this podcast so I don't have to do it alone.
Work calls that day.
Yeah.
So happy we could do it, though.
Yeah, good shit. We'll do it again for sure. Because
hopefully everybody out there will learn a little something from this podcast.
Yeah. Or feed them more fuel to talk shit about my weed vape pen and my jailhouse tats.
It's true.
Jailhouse tats.
Jailhouse tats.
All right, guys. Well, thanks so much for watching / listening, and we'll be looking forward to the next one. So thanks for sticking around. There's more thunder.
More thunder. Nice. And don't forget out there, you don't own El Lago.
You don't own the lake.